I'm actually in my car because I have to do a pickup for one of my children who's at swimming training. So I thought I'd drive to the pool rather than leave him wait by himself. So he'll be out in about 15, 20 minutes, which is fine. He can sit in the car for a little while I finish this off. But yeah, and can you just let me know if you can hear me as well? I think you can. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, George. So the reason we're here today is because we have hope for the future. Without hope, all is lost. Yep. Well, we need hope. I agree with that. We also need some outcomes as well. And that's what I'll be fighting for if I get back into the Senate for another 6 years. We need to keep fighting. Hi, Eric. I try and do, are these lives regular, weekly, or monthly? I try to do lives across all 4 social media platforms. So this includes YouTube, Facebook, X, as well as TikTok. So I did one on TikTok last night, one on Spaces last Sunday night, and I did a Facebook one night last week. So I generally try and do 1 or 2 every week on one of the platforms. So this is my first one on YouTube, I think, for about 3 weeks. But yeah, I do try to do them, and I'll be on for about an hour tonight because it's going to get dark outside. So you'll be looking at me in the dark in about an hour's time. So I'll just scroll up. Yep. Okay. You can hear. Great. There's no real limit. I'll try and answer the questions as quickly as I can. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate your support. Julian, looks like an interesting question. Average age of inheritance is 50 or 60. The revenue from an inheritance tax can significantly lower income tax for people in the prime of their life when they need money for families. Look, before I would introduce an inheritance tax, I would look at cutting government waste, increasing withholding tax on profit offshore, and get rid of the 50% CGT discount because that CGT discount gives a lot of benefits to a lot of people. So I would look at getting rid of that one as well before an inheritance tax. Yeah. So, yeah, hi, Julie. Thanks. Can you tell us why Albo did a backroom deal with Dutton to water down the NAC? This is enough. I don't know, Chris. You'll need to give me some more information on that. When was that watered down? Just recently, and what do you mean by watered down? I'm happy to answer that question, but I'm just not sure exactly what you mean. Thanks for having the courage to talk about tax reform. You're welcome, Julian. We really need it. Yeah, the Henry tax review. I had a problem, I think, from the memory with the Henry tax review. He wants to get rid of stamp duty and have a land tax. I disagree with that because the problem with a land tax is that you pay land tax, even if you're not earning an income. So that will have a very significant impact on pensioners and things like that. That's why I want the capital gains tax, because with the capital gains tax, you pay tax on the profit. So if you bought a house for $1 million, sold it for $2 million, this is an investment property, and you paid, 30 cents on the $1 million gain, so you pay $300,000 in capital gains tax. All that happens is the $300,000 comes out of the $2 million. You don't really miss it because it came out of the lump sum. Whereas if you tried charging someone the equivalent of, say, $30,000 land tax over 10 years, so $3,000 a year, that's a lot for a pensioner or someone like that. So I would rather have a capital gains tax on the sale of your investment property and don't have the CGT. Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, just reading a comment there from George Kaiser. CGT discount have to go. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Lyndon, Senator Rennick for Dodge. I do agree with that. Look, the thing about the Doge, or Dodge, however it's pronounced, is that ministers should be applying Doge principles every day of the week. It really just goes to show how quickly we've gone backwards in this country when, someone like Elon Musk can just show out, well, say in this country, like Elon Musk can make the bureaucracy look so bad. And, that's where we're at the moment. But ministers, and it just goes to show how weak our ministers are, the fact that they can't, apply these simple cost management principles on a day-to-day basis. But yes, that is my experience with, like, I am a management accountant by trade, so I know how to run a trial balance, I know how to do account listings and things like that. So I would be able to, go through and identify costs, where there's genuine government waste, and we need to either, eliminate that waste completely or redirect the energy of the people towards frontline services rather than backroom regulation. Thanks, Mona. Oops, okay. 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 That's very hard work. Okay, so Lancelot Link. Our natural gas, it's our offshore gas that is given away, and there's two reasons for that. The petroleum resource rent tax was designed very poorly, and they also shift profits offshore. Chevron and these big oil companies shift above the line profits offshore, like interest, royalties, and rent. Now, I ran for politics to raise awareness of the amount of profits being sent offshore. So there's two things we need to do here. Number one is we need to put a royalty tax, just like the state governments do on minerals and onshore gas, onto offshore gas. So those of you who are confused about this issue, onshore gas is a state-owned property, and that is taxed by the states. Offshore gas in the Northwest Shelf and offshore is collected, or profits from that should be collected by the federal government. They came up with this stupid petroleum resource rent tax, which is ineffective, and it should be replaced by a royalty, which we're proposing, a 5% flat tax royalty. But the second solution there is we also need to make sure that we increase the amount of the rate of withholding tax on interest, royalties, and rent that is sent offshore, because that is not high enough. So that's what I think we need to do there. And Lance, that's just sheer ignorance by our politicians who don't know how to effectively, they just don't know accounting, they don't understand tax. And that is one of the reasons why I'm running again with, under the People First Party banner, or People First banner, is that I believe I've got tax experience and I know how to actually solve a lot of these problems, because a lot of people just don't understand what the problem is. But because I've worked in tax structuring and things like that, I feel like I know how to close the loopholes. Chris, what can be done to stop the rollout of smart meters? Chris Morgan, I think that's a state issue. I think the states are rolling it out. If you want to send an email to senator.rennick@aph.gov.au, I'll look into that further for you. Matthew, if I don't get in this time, what is our plan? Well, I'll have to keep the People First Party going. I'm hoping to get some senators in. I think we've got a good chance in Victoria, and hopefully if I can get a good Senate candidate in WA, we can get up there as well. I'm hoping to work with Family First in South Australia, and I'm trying to do a deal with the Libertarians in New South Wales, but we'll see what happens there. So we don't have Senate election candidates in every lower house seat, as I've said in Parliament last week, because it costs $2,000 to run a candidate. We've got to find $300,000 just to run a candidate in every lower house seat. We can't afford that. So we'll be running some candidates in Queensland, some candidates in Victoria, and a handful of candidates across the rest of the country. What we will be doing is running Senate candidates, however, for the upper house, because at this stage, with the minor parties, we've got to crawl before we can walk. And to do that, we need to get representation in the Senate first, because the Senate is based on proportional representation, not first past the post. So that's what we're trying to do in terms of, that's our strategy, is to run a Senate campaign predominantly, looking at getting myself and a few other senators from other states in. Yep. Thanks, John. Yep. Thanks, now Immortal Girl. Yeah, I like Jeffrey Sachs. He's a good guy. I definitely agree with him on a lot of things. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, look, good question, Lancelot Link. President Trump has withdrawn from the Paris Accord. Why can't we? Because, well, the reason why we're not, we can is the answer. Why don't we? Is because the two major parties are gutless. And the reality is they seem to think if we pull out of Paris, it's going to damage our trade. The reality is 86% of our exports go to Asia. And I don't think China, Japan, South Korea, and India give a flying rat's pajamas about whether or not we're a part of Paris or not. So that is just because the two major parties are beholden to whoever they are beholden to, the woke movement, and they're too weak to do the right thing and stand up for the best interests of Australia. Yet again, why I ask you to support People First. If you want to help People First, you can hop on our website at www.peoplefirstparty.au. And you can either become a member, donate, volunteer, or become a candidate. And we do intend to close off candidates at the end of this week. No, Giam, hopefully we are here to stay. And it will be easier to do that if we get people up at the next election. But that is the plan, because we do need to actually, I think, get a more polished and professional minor party in place. And that is the strategy that's effectively why I did what I did, is because I don't think the other parties, Clive comes and goes. He deregistered UAP after the last election, and now he's, can't run this election. One Nation have been in there since 1996. Pauline got into federal parliament in 1996. They've still only got 2 senators. They don't have state divisions. You need state divisions if you want to get senators up in other states. The Libertarians are two neoliberal, economic rationalists. For me, their philosophy believes in selling infrastructure. They allowed, too much foreign debt into this country. They think the market should rip on everything. I'm not a libertarian. I'm a protectionist. I believe in protecting the people and their families, and I don't trust corporations or big government. I think all big organisations need to have proper checks and balances in place. It's not a conspiratorial thing or anything like that. It's just every big organisation, it's inevitable that, toadies and yes men climb to the top. And because they haven't got the guts to stand up and do the right thing, the poor quality assurance happens as a result. Well, Leo Tina, in regards to high rents, the best thing we can do for that is, number one, is to reduce immigration. Number two is to get rid of the 50% CGT discount. And number three is to stop building all these renewables, because a lot of energy and a lot of tradesmen are involved in constructing new renewables, and we don't really want that. What we really want is, our tradesmen building more houses and more factories, not just more unreliable renewables that are very expensive, that are subsidised heavily and aren't really delivering reliable energy to the grid. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point there, Lyndon. It used to be that a department stuff up caused the minister to resign. Haven't seen that recently. No, neither have I. I've seen some very bad behaviour, and no one seems to get sacked for anything anymore, and that's part of the problem. No one in the government anymore is held accountable for anything. In fact, there's a saying that does the rounds in Canberra, that effectively you fail upwards in Canberra. So, yeah, not good. Yep, quickening avatar, dodge every day of the week. Totally agree. Yep, can't disagree with that whatsoever. Thoughts on abortion? Christine Herson, I don't believe in late-term abortion. We are looking at introducing an adoption policy to make it easier for babies to be adopted in Australia. It's very hard for people to adopt children in this country. And we believe that if it was easier to adopt the children, there'd be less abortions. So that's our policy on that. Yep, William Baybridge, exactly right. Remittances, I take it you mean offshore remittances, need to be taxed. And that's money earned here. Should there be? Absolutely. William Baybridge, agree with him 100%. The land value tax works as the basis for Canberra rates. People who are not earning can defer payments and have it taken out of their estate. Okay, I didn't know that. Yep, fair enough. That's a fair enough point. If you want to delay it that way, that's fair enough. I would still argue, capital gains tax is the same type of thing. But if you did it whereby you could delay it and get it taken out of your estate, that's probably not a bad. That would be a better solution than just taxing people on land tax. Is there a pack of wild dogs approaching me? Not that I know of. There's a big gum tree behind me, but that's it. Yeah, Julian, it's funny how Bitcoiners see themselves as radical economists when they accept economic rationalism and neoliberalism without a second thought. Yeah, I mean, these guys, I mean, it was the economic rationalism and neoliberalism of the 80s and 90s that saw all our infrastructure privatised, the lifting of capital controls. That is responsible for the mess we are in today. State governments are broke because they sold their infrastructure, spent all the money, and then they lost all that recurring revenue. So that's a real problem, I have to say. Yeah, agree with that. Royalties are good, more money, less reliance on immigration. Totally agree. Natasha, Lachlan Babbitt didn't support Rennick's bill on small parties. I was disappointed in that. They should be pulling together for us. Yeah, I'm not sure if Ralph was even in the chamber, but yeah, we definitely need to lower the threshold funding to 1% if we want smaller parties to get up. And that's why I'm trying to get some of these other minor parties to go together in one column on the ticket so we can run what's called a joint ticket. Because if we do that, combined, we should get 4% of the vote and we can start to actually get some funding that we can put away for the next election, which then can be used as a war chest for advertising, how to vote cards, call flutes and all those sort of things to raise the profile of all our candidates. Lance, I can't tell you why so many people don't understand how preferential voting works. You'll have to ask them. It's not. That stuff should be taught in school, and it's not. Yeah. Chris Oreo, stamp duty on house purchases is nothing but a rort. Every time the same house is sold, the government collects stamp duty. Look, I have a slightly different view to that. I would rather stamp duty than income tax. If you got rid of stamp duty, Chris, you would find that speculators would move into the housing market and they would be flipping houses every weekend. They would go around on a rainy weekend and buy a house, wait till the sun's shining and sell it the following weekend. I saw stamp duty get lifted from the Australian Stock Exchange, and basically we've been invaded by foreign high frequency traders that has completely destroyed the cap of the stock exchange in Australia. So I actually prefer stamp duty to income tax. Stamp duty is a tax on speculation. The more you buy and sell, the more transactional tax you pay. What I hate are two taxes: income tax and payroll tax. And if I had my way, I'd reverse the decision of the states in 2000 when they got rid of stamp duty on share trading. I would bring that back, and I would get rid of payroll tax. Now, back to stamp duty on houses, I do think 4% is too high. I think it should be more like 2%, or maybe even 1%, but you do want a small turnover fee to stop people flipping houses or anything. Like if there's some people out there that won't do a hard day's work and produce anything, like Bitcoiners, they just want to trade for the sake of trading. And while trade's important, it needs to be around physical goods and services, and it needs to be adding value. It shouldn't be destructive in the sense that it's a waste of energy or anything like that. Yeah, cool. You've run a business and a festival. That sounds cool. Yep. Davo, yep, I've got no problem with all government spending being online. You can get a lot of information on government spending. If you want to hop onto the Auditor Generals, they often release a lot of reports to give a view on things. And you will see that most government departments do release annual reports. And if you go in there, you can see at the very least the salaries of the top 5 executives in that department. So some of that information is already out there. You just got to go looking for it, but it is there. Yep, we do need our own bank there. Now, Mortal Girl. Thanks, Ruby Doobie. Land value tax, it can't be avoided even by the most cunning string pullers because they can't hide. Yep, fair enough. Can we buy our mines back? Well, sorry. We do own a lot of our mines here in Australia. Mate, have you got any wet togs on you? Because my phone's getting hot. Yeah, just pass them over when you can. Yeah, so we own a lot of our mines here, even though there's a lot of foreign investment in our mines as well. The key thing is to make sure we also tax the profits, not just from our mines. Everyone keeps talking about our mines. What you don't understand is like Pfizer, Google, Facebook, Colgate. I'm just trying to think who else sells goods. There's so many people that sells goods and services in this country that pay no tax on their profits on the way out. It's like real estate, foreign ownership of property. Our real estate agents do not have to withhold payments on remittances made to foreigners who own investment properties in this country. Right, when you pay your tax and you lodge your tax return at the end of the year, the ATO already knows what your salary is. They know what your dividends are. They know what your interest is. But for some reason, real estate agents don't have to declare how much they send offshore, and they should, because there's a lot of money going offshore. Why can't foreign aid be stopped? Well, yet again, it can be. It's just that it isn't. I've seen that going around on the net. There's about $2.5 billion on that right-hand side of the column that can be wiped straight away. I'm not against some foreign aid for South Pacific countries, because we do need to keep our relationship strong with them, or otherwise we'll end up with the Chinese Navy and Air Force on our doorstep, and we don't want that. Yes, a lot of it can be abolished, but not all of it. Thanks, Tanya. Thoughts on government tendering being predominantly closed invite only that excludes local in favour of the big multinationals. It's like government hates Australian business. Well, Andrew, can you send me more information on that to senator.rennick@aph.gov.au, because I'd be curious to know that, because that should not be happening. Not good. Okay. Okay, Glenn, righto. What skills do you need for a candidate? Well, you've got to be basically, the cost is $2,000 to pay for the AEC, and then we charge $500 for processing and then for how to vote cards and call flutes. And we also ask for a police check just to make sure you don't have a criminal background, because we don't want to find out, 2 days before the campaign, in the media that someone's got a criminal record. So there's a few things. If you're interested, you can hop on peoplefirstparty.au and click on the candidate button and register your interest, and we'll send you a candidate evidence form. But thanks for showing your interest there, Natasha. Dan, there's no point calling a day a public protest. I mean, the fact of the matter is, people, you need to be in the boardrooms during the weekdays, and the best way to do that is to get involved with a party, get active in a party, and try and change from within. I'm just going to try and cool this phone down a little bit. Yeah. So that's the best thing to do. Yeah. So there's no point protesting. The best form of protesting is being constructive, and trying to change things in a constructive manner. So in other words, join a party, get involved with your local branch, run as a candidate. You can make a donation. You can hand out how to vote cards on the polling booths. That's the best way to make get involved and protest. Is the best way to protest is being constructive. Shouting at the clouds won't achieve a lot. So that is, in my view, the best thing to do. So Viv, the two majors working for WEF and UN. Look, the WEF, the power, the influence of the World Economic Forum is completely overdone. Yes, they are a think tank that has some influence, but the reality is that the world is controlled by our intelligence agencies and the big international banks. As I've said this many times, the CIA doesn't wake up in the morning and pick up the phone to Klaus Schwab and ask, who are we going to assassinate today, or which country are we going to take over, or where we're going to form a coup. And that is where we need to be looking. I think there's been too much focus at shouting at the clouds about the WEF. And while they have some influence, they're nothing more than a glorified think tank. They get way too much publicity, and I think it suits the real puppet masters to be shining a light on the left, so we're not shining a light at the real puppet masters, which in my view are, bureaucracy, military, industrial complex, and the I was going to say the BlackRocks of the world to a degree, but even with BlackRock, if we want to get rid of BlackRock, all we do is we abolish superannuation, so they don't have our money to manage. They don't have our money to manage. Same for WEF. If you don't like WEF, just stop sending bureaucrats over to WEF to go to their conferences. If you don't want to, same for the WHO. We need to stop sending bureaucrats. So we need to effectively here in Australia ban international travel for bureaucrats other than diplomats themselves. Look, I don't know how much influence George Soros has on Australian politicians. There's no doubt that he has had influence on politicians in the States and Europe. So he definitely is an influential player. And it'd be guys like him and many others that you wouldn't know that I think have a lot more power than the World Economic Forum for what it's worth. Chris Mack, our party is People First Party. So if you want to vote for me in the Senate, look for the People First logo, and likewise in other states as well. Okay. Looking forward to changing Greens out of balance of power. Well, if you want to do that, Eric, and that is a good question, the best way to do that is vote for People First, number one, and then preference the other minor parties such as the Libertarians and One Nation 2 and 3. Okay. Can farmers get insurance against renewables changing their landscape and property value? You'd have to ask an insurance company for that. I doubt it. As in, you mean renewables, the farmers, you mean neighbouring farmers, or this is you, Jason Mann, you mean neighbouring farmers, because that's actually a good question, because if you're a neighbouring farmer and your neighbour sticks up a heap of windmills and it destroys your, visual landscape, that's a good question. That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that, Jason. RoboQuan, if you need any volunteers in Newcastle, let me know. Thank you. If you want to hop on to www.peoplefirstparty.au, you can click the volunteer button and we will get you in touch with our local coordinator in New South Wales. Hi, Julie, you're a lino, Liberal in name only. I resigned during COVID and after seeing you here, I rejoined. I wish I hadn't. What a mess. WA Liberals are Labor light. They certainly are. Richard, that is a $64 million question. Why is London holding our gold and is that safe? London holds our gold because RBA colludes with other central banks to keep the price of gold low. They lease gold out. And the reason why they lease gold out is that they don't want the gold price going too high, because if gold becomes a favoured form of currency or wealth, that will devalue the greenback, and they want the greenback and paper money to be worth as much as possible. Not that you know it by the amount of reckless money printing and spending they do. So that's why they want to keep a lid on the price of gold. Okay. Philip, what is Australia and what is an Australian? Let's get back to first principles. Good question. I'm not quite sure how to answer that one, but arable land versus renewables. Warwick Sparks, it should be arable land every day of the week. Julian, remittance payments should be taxed, absolutely. Use our coal, Neo Mortal Girl, absolutely. Elon Musk is turning a profit at Twitter. That's good. Gold, I bet London doesn't have it. The big cheese. Well, you could be right. I've got my doubts as well. And I think we should bring it home. Vertical golf, I did answer this question before, but yes, we do need an Australian version of Dodge. How are Australians able to vote? Thank you, VT, for a minor party to ensure they become a major party. The way to do that is to effectively vote People First at the very least in the Senate. And when you're voting in the lower house, vote for minor parties first. Even if we don't get them up this time, it's very important that we continue to erode the primary vote of the major parties. Because if we don't do that, we're in big, big trouble. So we need to do that as well. hang on, I'm just going to sit this phone up a bit more. Yep, so I'm just trying to scroll up. Okay, guys, I'm not sure if you can still see me here. Hello. Okay. Oh, yep, we're still on. Stop all immigration, stop all foreign aid to countries that abuse women. Yep, well, I think we definitely need to lower immigration. I don't think it's possible to go right back to zero because there's always reasons. Australians marry foreigners, they have children overseas. Sometimes there are reasons, but we definitely need to bring it right back down to our policy is less than 100,000 new visas. So obviously, as the old visas roll out, we'll be having a negative net migration number, and that needs to stay in place for a very long time. Yeah, look, the best thing to do there, ATM M89, is overpaid bureaucrats having to apply for their jobs, is you really need good ministers that go in there. When they start their job, they need to get, a trial balance of all the costs. They need to get job descriptions of everyone in the department. They need to then break those jobs up between jobs that are project-based that, should be tracking against the initial budget performance. And then you have jobs that are recurring that should have, and I mean, I used to do this in my job, and you have to have a job description and explain what you did every day of the monthly cycle or 6 monthly cycle, whatever, so that you can track people and keep up with what they're doing. Yeah. Anti-trans stuff, Ruby Doobie, I like your party, but I think I'll be heading back by the anti-trans stuff. Yep, fair enough. I don't know, like our view is we don't think children under 18 should have operations. We don't apologise for that. I just don't think that when you're that young, you should be changing your sex whatsoever. Yep. Yep, thanks, Natasha. Yep, if you can share this around, that'd be great. I'd really appreciate it. Yep, thanks, Julie. Well, you can email your policies through. Thanks, Julie. Hi, Scotland. How can we stop wasting tax money on private schools and give it to public schools? Well, that's a good question. So, Linda, basically, the problem with school education in this system, it's funded by two different levels of government. What we need to be doing is fund education from one level of government. And the best way to do that is to basically give education back to the states, and they fund all schools. Private schools don't get as much funding from the government per student as public schools do. Public schools get about 11,000. These figures are about 4 years old. Public schools get about 11,000 per student. Private schools, this is the Catholics, I think get about 9,500 to 10,000. They was about 10% less. And then the Christian schools got about 9,500, maybe 15% less, because private schools have to build their own building. So, yeah, it's the information you're being fed there doesn't paint a proper picture of what really happens, because my view is every student should get the same amount of money, and then depending on the circumstances and the area they live in, they should then get a loading, regardless of what school they go to. It should be based on your geographical circumstances around schooling rather than whether it's public or private, because yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that. Okay. Yep, I'm not sure yet. I agree. Reduce tax on Australians and increase tax on corporations. Absolutely. And I think we need to, and I've asked the tax office, they haven't done this, but what we really need to do is look at the net company tax rate, because I believe that the net company tax rate is too low, and it needs to be much, much higher. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you think the Star religious group has taken media? I don't know what that is. Sorry. Yes, form a coalition. Yep. Okay. What do I, Toko 6000, what do I think about the election this year, and where do you think this is going? Hard to say. I think it's highly likely there'll be a minority government. If anyone was going to get a majority government, I think it's more likely to be the coalition. The way the numbers fall out in the Senate, we don't know, but there'll be a big crossbench And we want a big crossbench in the Senate. We want as many independent senators or senators from minor parties to get up, because you cannot trust the major parties. We have to stop the major parties. They are a uni party. They are controlled by the establishment. They are not acting in the best interests of the people. Okay. These comments are fairly flying up at the moment. Why, when we the people vote someone in, why can they be changed to someone we didn't vote in? You'll need to explain that. Okay. Senator, the work you have been doing regarding the jabs has been super appreciated. Thanks, Lance. I appreciate that. Not sure yet. We already charge royalties on our natural resources. So it would be not that easy to reduce income tax to 15% or lower. What we need to do is, what people don't realise, our real tax leakage is in profits sent offshore. That's what we've got to lift the withholding tax. Because we actually do, state governments collect billions of dollars in royalties, especially WA, Queensland and New South Wales. It's just the offshore gas. But our offshore gas is much deeper than Qatar's gas, and it's not as high quality. That is why we don't make as much money, along with the reasons I said before, is that it's too much offshore profit shifting involved. Yep. Hey, Turbo. Yep. I hate payroll tax too. I think it's nuts. And it should be gotten rid of, and it should be replaced by stamp duty on share trading. So good to hear from you there. Yep, anytime a politician makes any recorded statement, I want a little pop-up that tells us how much they're paid. Well, I'm paid $234 base, plus we get a $30,000 electoral allowance. So about $260 and then $20,000 for a car, which we do thrash the cars. We do a lot of driving in this job. Yep. Sure. Thanks very much, Father Burning. I appreciate your comments there. Yep, David. Yep, all comments, all government spending could go on and be reported on the net. I'm not sure why blockchain is just a spreadsheet, but yeah, blockchain, whatever, it can be reported. Yep. Yep, IPRA 43. Yeah, a lot of big corporations don't pay enough tax, and we don't do enough to clamp down on tax evasion there. I agree with that. Yes, the Chinese should never have been allowed to buy the port in Darwin. Not good. I raised that in my maiden speech almost 6 years ago. We have had a lot of responses, Angel, in regards to candidates, but a lot of them can't afford the fee. And we just need to manage our budget wisely. So we're being very selective with our candidates, but we have had a good response. I'm not aware of the recent indictment in Canberra. Thanks, Chris Oreo. Thanks for becoming a member of the party. I appreciate that. Dane, yep, I think we need to get out of control of the international banks, specifically the Federal Reserve and the International Bank of Settlements. I posted a clip the other night where the RBA refused to hand over the minutes of their meetings with the International Bank of Settlements because they said they wouldn't be allowed a seat at the table. But yeah, no, it's not good. It's not good. Yep, I agree, Lance. You did give a great speech. Thank you, all you do. Thanks, Cuz. I'm sorry to hear that, Neo Mortal Girl. 45 grand in family court, lawyers to get nowhere. Yep, our judiciary has a lot to answer for. Yeah, hi, Bonham Merchant 1. You can vote for us in New South Wales. We will get a Senate candidate for New South Wales. The plan is, I'm hoping to do a deal with the Libertarians there. We may not be able to, but the plan is to get a Senate candidate in New South Wales. Look, Vladimir, it's going to be hard to open the press gallery. The best thing to do to open up the press gallery is just continue to use social media and just shun mainstream media. But it definitely needs to happen. But what we do need to bring back is the cross-media ownership laws as well. Yeah, Andrew, definitely a transaction tax there. We need a transaction tax on financials, so derivatives and definitely shares at the very start. Yeah. I'm not Crossy Doan. I'm not all that happy with the latest trade agreement with India. I think we run the risk of losing a lot of it. There'll be a lot of outsourcing to India, and I disagree with it. Fiat experiments always fall flat. Richard, totally agree. Yep. Yep. Yep, Jack, that's a fair point about the anti-Semitism. You should be able. Oh, look, I agree with you. You should be able to criticise Israel without being called anti-Semitic. You know, there's valid concerns what's going on there. Look, my own personal view is we talk about the whole Israel-Gaza thing way too much. But at the same time, you should be able to make valid criticisms without being labelled anti-Semitic. I don't disagree with that. Richard, markets manipulated. We want to bring back stamp duty on on share trading. We also want to get rid of the 15% accelerated discount laws. We also want superannuation boards to be voted by their members, and we don't want superannuation boards to vote in company AGMs unless they get proxies from their members. So I hope that answers your question. My brother, CSIRO, science, climate change, don't really talk at Christmas. He was smirking at me because finally his indoctrination is falling apart. Keep going, Senator. Thanks, Andy Van. I will. Yeah, we're all sick of them. I missed that. These comments are really flying up through here at the moment. Thanks for all these questions. Thanks, Adina, for voting for me. Look, Julian, am I bullish about prospects for freedom-focused candidates this election? I think we've got a chance of getting up a senator from the minor parties, freedom parties, if that's what you want to call them, in every state. We just need to work together. That's proving harder to be easier said than done. But anyway, we'll keep trying. Thanks, Lonnie. I can't run for Prime Minister in the Senate, and at this stage, I'm just running for the Senate. We need to, as I said, Richard, we need to tax derivatives, or at least unhedged derivatives to slow that down. Have I seen a documentary called The Witness Statement? Yes. I have. Yep, I have seen that one. No, I think Dutton will do nuclear, but he needs to just do it steady. Dale, thanks for standing up. Tambourine, I just caught that. You will need to send an email to other parties if you're a member of other party to announce your citizenship. Membership there. That's the best thing to do. No, I haven't read the inspection criteria, David. I didn't know that Dreyfus has been disbarred and no longer a KC. I don't know how you know all that stuff, but anyway. Protel. No, you can't get rid of rates, and we've got to pay some rates because we need councils to be collecting the garbage, providing sewerage and water, and keeping our parks and things clean. Are you concerned? Yeah, great to see you in a live chat. Thank you, Rob Dixon. I think I answered that one, Julian. Well, look, Anna Password, I'm sorry to hear about your family member who's vax injured. We have tried to be getting compensation and for the vax injured, and this is why I need another 6 years, because if we get in, I believe in the next 6 years there will be, led by the United States, a real reckoning on the COVID vaccines, and we need politicians here in Australia to continue pressing to stand up to it. offshore. Yep. Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay. We've proposed a referendum for free speech. Yeah. So just that question: do we want a referendum on free speech? Yes. Okay. No foreign property ownership. That's one of our policies. Tao Wolf, Stormhawk. So we announced that policy last year. Why not have all voting adults in a week of education? Well, people can look, I think it needs to be taught at school, watching, but people, like, it's not that hard. In the lower house, the green ticket, you got to vote, number every box. So put, you got to number every box in the lower house, the green ticket. On the white ticket, you can vote 1 to 6 above the line or 1 to 12 below the line. That's it. And really, that's like, people have to, if you're smart enough to drive a car or buy a house, whatever, you should be able to know how to vote in Australia. It's compulsory voting, preferential in the lower house, and in the upper house, you can vote 1 to 6 above the line or 1 to 12 below the line. Cheers, AD. I appreciate that. Thanks, Dale. I don't know what you mean there, shooter the emu with a gun. How about tax reform based on employment over income value? I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm running in Queensland. Will Australia ever give up on the vaccine and the boosters? I hope so, Gap Media. We need to. Yep. Yep. Yeah, look, vaping products do I believe vaping products should be regulated in retail rather than the failed bans we currently see? Yeah, I do. We just, vaping's an issue though, because unlike smoking, you can't smell it. So it's hard to stop kids from doing it at school. So I'm not up to speed with vaping. I just can't be around every issue. But yeah, I'm not 100% up on that issue. I apologise. Hopefully we don't turn out like Iran, a flower for a name. In 79. Do you think there is hope for us here to fight Big Pharma? Watching you dismantle the TJ and health ministers is both pleasing and heartbreaking. Yeah, look, I think we are slowly dismantling the TJ and the Big Pharma, and I think what's really pleasing about that is the fact that in Bobby Kennedy is getting on top of that. So I think that's a good thing. I do think that's a good thing. There must be ghosts in this car now. It's almost getting too dark to see me. So I won't stay on for much longer. So if I cut off from here, because it's either because the phone's hot or whatever. But okay. I just read our tax rate is high. I didn't get the rest of that. These comments are flying through at the moment. Sorry. Okay. I'm just going to try and find some more questions. What's my position on multiculturalism, Philip? I think that when people come to Australia, they should assimilate into Australian way of life. That doesn't mean to say that, we'll all be 100% the same, but they certainly have to be committed to the future of Australia. When was the referendum to act the Australia Act? Pony's Corner, you didn't need it. Section 5138 gave the federal government power to deal with powers of the Privy Council. So I suggest you go and read 5138 of the Constitution, and you will see that you didn't need a referendum to get rid of the Privy Council. And quite frankly, I think that's fine, because I don't want British lords lording over decisions made here in Australia. And I don't know why people think that they still want the British judiciary and aristocracy making decisions on court cases here in Australia. Yep, we need to crack down on lobbyists. I missed that name there, but I definitely agree. We've got a policy that all paid lobbying should be abolished, and that lobbyists need to disclose how much. And if we can't do that, then they also need to disclose how much they're paid by other candidates. I'm just going to see if I can get a bit of light in here. No, that's not going to work. Okay. That's all right. So I'm getting dark here, so I might just chop this off about 5 minutes early because we're running out of light. Thanks, Robert Clark. Great watching you, Senator. Thanks very much for that. I missed that name. Yeah, Dane, that's a good question. One Nation have been there for many years. Is there a flaw in their strategy to break up the major parties? Absolutely. And that is they don't have state divisions. And if we want to be successful as a minor party, we need to have state divisions. We need a party that's going to have state divisions, and we need a protectionist party that's going to have state divisions as well. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we should, Ben, we should back the Australian dollar with, Ben Howell, we should back the Australian dollar with infrastructure. That's the best way to back your country. Yeah, that's the best thing to do. Yeah, I don't know anything about locksmiths overcharging. That's news to me. I've answered that question. Yep. If you want to break into politics, Adina, you need to get involved with the political party and then put your hand up to run as a candidate. Can people donate to help good and promising candidate? Yeah, sure. If you hop on to www.peoplefirstparty.au, you can hit the donate button or you can become a member. Membership's $50 for 12 months. Okay, yes, Chris, the minor parties should merge, and I'm trying to work with some others now. But that's a lot easier said than done because some other parties don't want to, necessarily sort of merge. But anyway, that's what it is. Okay. Righto, guys. I'm probably going to hop off here because it's getting pretty... Oh, if I can do it this way, if I look out the car park, we might get a little bit more light. Okay. Senator, MSM is a disgrace. Well, I'm trying to form Peter Hatch, I'm trying to form a coalition now whereby I get other freedom parties we split states rather than split votes within states, and we all go on the same column. So I've tried to get people to back me here in Queensland, People First in Queensland, the Libertarians in New South Wales, Family First in South Australia. Victoria's a bit of a contested one, so I've left that alone. And I was happy to do something similar in WA, but the other parties don't want to do it. Getting away from bread and butter issues. Wayne Harrison, what's your view on Australia developing its own space program? I'm all for that. I've long thought we should be able to have our own satellite launching pad up in Cape York. It's close to the equator. We should be, we are a big continent. We needed satellites. I mean, as it turns out, Starlink, Elon Musk is going to beat us to it. But that is something we should have done a very, very long time ago, and we haven't, and that's a real wasted opportunity. Cynthia, we're going to have candidates in Victoria, so look out. We'll be announcing our Senate candidate very soon, and I'm hoping to get down to Victoria next weekend. Yeah. Okay, we're probably not going to run candidates in the ACT to that person who asked. We just don't have time to do the ACT. Sorry. Oh, well, that's a good question. How much money was spent on producing the new HB laws? Look, yeah, exactly, especially when New South Wales passed its own version. That's one of the reasons why I voted against it. We've got duplication of roles and responsibilities between the state and federal government with this stuff. State governments are responsible for law enforcement, not the federal government. So yeah. So anyway, look, guys, I might hop off 5 minutes early. I'm just a bit early. It's just getting a bit dark outside. I didn't think about it when I said to my wife I'd pick up my son from swimming. That it'd be dark outside, but yeah. when will the senators be held accountable for their lying, Carla? Well, you can make them accountable by voting them out and voting for minor parties. 8 entities, I just missed that one. I can't seem to scroll back up, but I saw that something about 8 entities had massive shorts and didn't see the rest of it. Yeah. No, look, I probably won't join the Libertarian Party because they're neoliberals or economic rationalists, and many of their members believe in selling infrastructure. They don't think government should own infrastructure. They want, companies and inevitably foreign companies to own infrastructure. They don't want capital controls. They're big backers of Bitcoin. We need more civil engineers and mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, not financial engineers in this country. So we've got a few ideological differences to sort out there. Yeah. Okay. The establishment, Labor influenced the Reserve Bank's decision by going on the media. Look, I don't think it was a bad thing that they lowered interest rates today. I don't think that was a bad thing at all. Some people needed some relief. I don't think we should go below 4%, but I think, the latest interest rate cut wasn't a bad thing today. Thanks, Dale. Appreciate that. What's Article 9 of the Human Rights there, Shane? Is that the Human Rights Act? Can you be more specific about that? I don't know that one off the top of my head. Yep. I thank you for all you do. One nation, one flag. Yep, sure. I don't know how we get ministers to answer questions there. It's very annoying. Alex, we do seem to have more of a totalitarian government these days. There's too many statutory independent bodies and we need to crack down on them. Overstepping their mandates, like the Council of Casey. Where's that? Is that Victoria? What did they do there? Well, look, vote them out in the elections, David Van Beckham. You just vote them out. Get involved, run as a councillor at the next election if you don't like them. If they're that bad, local communities should be able to get rid of them. Shane, Article 9 is our right to free speech. Well, I stood up for free speech a couple of weeks ago, Shane, and I think we should have a referendum to enshrine our free speech. Yeah. Okay, that's, yeah. Okay. Righto. So, look, I've changed my mind. Is it compulsory voting or compulsory attendance? In the chamber, you don't have to vote. It's not necessarily compulsory. It depends. You can have procedural motions. A lot of motions aren't compulsory. But on important bills, I think you should vote for what it's worth. Sue Hall, we are going to get rid of native title. We believe that there's been long enough now since the Mabo decision that if anyone's got a continuous association with the land, they have had time to make that claim. It's pretty obvious because we're getting too many ambit claims at the moment. Look, would I form a coalition with One Nation? Not at the moment. One Nation would have to start setting up state divisions. They don't do that. They run everything out of Queensland, and I think we need a minor party that has state divisions. So One Nation would have to change their structure to do that. Anyway, guys, it is getting dark here. So I'm going to sign off. It's not as dark as it seems. It's still a little bit of light outside, as you can see there. But I'm going to head off. But thanks for your time tonight, and I'll try and do another one on YouTube very soon. Okay, thanks for all your questions tonight. Thanks for your support. And don't forget to log on to www.peoplefirstparty.au and either become a member, donate, or volunteer to help out at the upcoming election. Cheers, guys. Have a great night. Okay, bye.